Hello students, welcome to the session. In this video, we'll discuss the social science passage from the reading section of the October 2020 PSAT. We'll be doing this passage together and then answering the questions. So let's begin. This passage and accompanying figure are adapted from Bharat Anand, The Content Trap, a Strategist's Guide to Digital Change. The author discusses changes in the music industry that began in the 1990s. To understand the relation between music, CDs, and concerts, it's useful to first return to one of the central ideas in business strategy, the idea of complements. It's a simple idea first coined a long time ago and popularized recently by the economists Adam Brandenburger and Barry Nalbuff. It goes like this: two products are complements if a user's value from consuming both is greater than the sum of the values from consuming each other. So before the author gets into the debate or the discussion of music and how the music industry changed, he introduces the idea of complements, the idea that if there are two products and the user gets greater satisfaction from consuming them together than he gets from consuming them individually, then the products are complementary. In other words, sell two complements together and a consumer will pay more for each than if they were sold individually. Take hot dogs and ketchup. Each without the other isn't particularly enjoyable. Have them together and you are in grilled nirvana. One way to think about complements is that the value of one product depends on the availability of another, as with hot dogs and ketchup. But complementary relationships can be stated in terms of price effects too. Specifically, the demand for a product goes up when the price of its complement goes down. So the idea of how this is applicable to music has not been introduced, but the author has established a baseline by taking the concept of complements and using the very simple example of hot dogs and ketchup to explain what complementary products could be. What does all this mean for the music business? To start, note that CDs and concerts are complements. The cheaper one of them becomes, and therefore the more it's consumed, the greater the demand for the other. For many years, concerts were the cheap complement that boosted CD sales. But as the price of recorded music fell, more fans could afford it and were then drawn to live concerts. Before the rise of internet, concerts were effectively advertising CD sales. After the explosion in file sharing, which the passage tells us is transmitting files from one computer to another over the internet, the relationship effectively reversed. Free recorded music became the advertisement, and as a result, the ideal complement for live concerts. So the change happened with the advent of the internet. That's what the passage tells us, that before the internet came around, the CDs that were sold at live concerts were in a way advertisements for the concerts, right? The concerts were advertising the CD sales because they were complementary. But now that music could be shared online and you do not have to buy a physical CD to do that. Now the online file sharing, the online music sharing itself became an advertisement for live concerts. Concert promoters are quite forthright about this reversal. A senior vice president of AEG Live, one of the world's largest presenters of live music events, said, as the recording business has gotten hit by piracy, the fact that a lot of bands are getting played all over the internet on sites like MySpace and YouTube that are exposing music, we are the beneficiaries in all honesty. So even though piracy is derided, piracy is said to take the credit away from the performer or the singer by selling his or her material online for free, for concert organizers, it has been a boon because it has allowed the music which is played in concerts to be advertised widely and for free. Concerts aren't the only complement to recorded music. There are many others. To see where they reside, return to ask the basic question regarding complements. As the price of music declines, which are the music-related products, services, or accessories that might benefit from this price decline. Music complements, it turns out, are many and varied. To start, there were CD burners, which the passage tells us a device used to record data to a CD. Blank CDs and CD players. MP3 players became a leading complement in subsequent years. And then there is broadband access. As demand for file sharing increased, and with it, the loss in content sales for recording studios, so did demand for high-speed internet, and with it, a dramatic increase in revenues for internet service providers and cable operators. So we see that when you talk about complements for music, we don't just look at complements that reside within the music ecosystem. We, in fact, have come to the realization that the biggest complement for music in the online era is the availability of broadband access, is the availability of fast internet. And that has also proved to be a complement to music availability. Ask a music industry executive about the industry's challenges, and you're likely to hear that young people don't pay for products anymore. It's a common refrain often used to bemoan why the economics of so many digital businesses have turned south, but it's wrong. As a recording studio executive, if you define your business in terms of how many CDs you sell, you'll be right to berate the young. Define your business as music and all its complements, MP3 players, concerts, merchandising, broadband, and so on, and you will realize that young people are spending more than ever. So this paragraph kind of tells you about how the economics of music selling have changed from the pre-online era to the current era. And if you define your success as a music producer based on parameters that were applicable before, then you would definitely see a loss, but that loss would be wrong, or that loss would be misleading, because the economics has changed in the online era. And there are many, many complements to the music which are selling, and which are selling like never before. The music industry is far from dead. Quite the contrary, billions of dollars of value were created within the music industry during the recent decade. It's just that value has been redistributed from recording studios to artists, from music retailers to technology manufacturers, from CDs to live concerts. The value shifted from recorded music to its complements. So that's the passage. Broadly, it was written in 2016. So we are looking at like the first decade and a half of the new millennium. And it talks about how the music industry has shifted, not towards loss necessarily, even though some people from the earlier era might say so, but towards a redistribution of money from the beneficiaries of the earlier era to new beneficiaries, complementary beneficiaries of music that's have arrived in the online age. Okay, so question 10, over the course of the passage, the main focus shifts from an exploration of how a business approach was developed to an examination of how the approach has been modified, a definition of a business strategy to a consideration of why that strategy has been slowly declining in a particular business, an explanation of a business concept to a discussion of how the concept has operated in a specific context, and a presentation of the history of a business idea to the analysis of why the idea continues to be relevant today. So I'm leaning towards C here because the passage starts with an explanation of the idea of complements. It explains the idea of complements with hot dogs and ketchup, and then it moves to music and explains how complements work in music. So C for sure looks like a good answer. So I'm going to write C. Okay. Option A, an exploration of how a business approach was developed to an examination of how the approach has been modified. I don't think, while the modification part has been broached in the passage, I don't think the initial business approach, the pre-online business approach, has necessarily been developed. So A is out. A definition of a business strategy to a consideration of why that strategy has been slowly declining. So this is actually the opposite of what the passage does. It defines the business strategy, the strategy of compliments, and then talks about why it has kind of how it explains how music industry works today. So B is wrong. And D, a presentation of the history of a business idea to an analysis of why the idea continues to be relevant today. So I don't think there is a history of compliments discussed. It's an example that's given and then it is discussed in the context of music. So D is wrong. Okay, question 11, as used in line 30, drawn to most nearly meets. So let's look at line 30. But as the price of recorded music fell, more fans could afford it and were then drawn to live concerts. They were attracted to live concerts. They decided to visit live concerts, something like that. So they were attracted to, right? We have an option there. So then that's C. They decided to attend those live concerts. It can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that one implication of the idea of compliments is that, and this is part of an evidence pair. So I'm just going to do 12 and 13 together. I'm just going to write the line numbers for 13, 16 to 22, 23 to 25, 25 to 27, and 32 to 36. Okay, so let's first look at the options here. One implication of the idea of compliments is that consumers will spend more on complementary products only if they initially value one of those products individually. The creation of new kinds of complementary products may increase consumer interest in already existing products. A wider availability of complementary products can sometimes overwhelm consumers with too much choice. Sales in an industry that uses a variety of complements in its business strategy will surpass sales in an industry that does not use complements. So I think I'm leaning towards B already. I don't like C and D for sure because there's no mention of overwhelming consumers with too much choice, and there's no comparison between industries that use complements with those that don't. Now, A, it says consumers will spend more on complementary products only if they initially valued one of those products. I don't think that idea of a cause effect is explored in the passage, so I'm leaning towards B. The creation of new kinds of complementary products, because the passage does talk about all these new complementary products that have developed in the field of music, may increase consumer interest in already. So I'm going towards B, but let's verify that with the line numbers. So 16 to 22 is saying one way to think about complements is that the value of the product depends on the availability of another, as with hot dogs and ketchup, but complementary relationships can be stated in terms of price. Specifically, the demand for a product goes up when the price of its complement goes down. So this is speaking in very generic terms of how complements work. I'm not sure this would be a good evidence for our answer, which is more related to how the music industry works. So I'm not satisfied with A. 23 to 25. What does all this mean for the music business? To start, note that CDs and concerts are complements. 25 to 27, the cheaper one of them becomes, the greater the demand for the other. And 32 to 36, before the rise of the internet, concerts were effectively advertising CD sales. After the explosion in file sharing, the relationship reversed. Free recorded music became the advertisement. And as a result, the ideal complement for live concerts. Okay. So I'm just going to look at C and D again because 25 to 27 is talking about the greater the demand for the other. So I'm just going to look at this. Already. Okay, so new kinds of complementary products. Right, so I think I will go with D because in D, I'm talking about the new kind of complementary product, which is file sharing. And that led to increased attention for live concerts, right? Right. And what about C again? The cheaper one of them becomes, the greater the demand for the other. This is not talking about introducing a new complement, right? So the only option that introduces a new complement is option D of this question. So I'm going with 12B and 13D. Okay. Right. Okay. 14. As used in line 58, dramatic most nearly means. So let's look at line 58. As demand for file sharing increased, so did demand for high-speed internet, and with it a dramatic increase in revenues. So a dramatic increase is like something beyond expectations. So that would mean impressive. Impressive is the best answer. We are not really looking at theatrical or emotional, and vivid would not make sense in this context. So an impressive increase in revenues would be the best answer. Okay, it can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that the health of the music business has generally been viewed as dependent on the popularity of the performing arts as a whole, consumer behavior of young listeners, number of websites devoted to digital music, degree of variety among musical components. I would go with B, right? B is what I'm leaning towards, but let's look at the options 48 to 51 for evidence, 51 to 54, 54 to 59, and 60 to 65. Okay. So 48 to 51 is saying, as the price of music declines, which are the music-related products, services, accessories that might benefit from this decline? Music complements, it turns out, are many and varied. And then there is broadband access. Right. And 60, ask a music industry executive about the industry's challenges. You're likely to hear that young people don't pay for products anymore. It's a common refrain used to bemoan why the economics of so many. So I'm leaning towards the consumer behavior of young listeners, right? It's dependent on that. Yeah. The other things are kind of, it's not about, while they are important to the changing nature of the business, it's not something that is true for the business success always, right? So I'm going with B and D again, right? B and D. Okay. Yeah. Okay. 17. The figure suggests that the overall increase in sales in the music industry from 1990 to 2014 can be explained because sales from the overall success from 1990 to 2014 can be explained because sales from CDs and vinyl declined, but sales from digital formats and MP3s increased, right? Yeah, even concerts, in fact. So CDs, vinyl tape increased more than the sales. AAC digital format increased, no. Complements, all complements combined increased more than the sale from. So all complements combined increased more than the sale from CDs, vinyl, and tape. Yeah, so their complements increase was greater than the decrease, and so overall it was an increase. So that's D. The figure supports which conclusion regarding the music industry in the years 2006 and 2014? 2006 and 2014. They are nearly the same in terms of sales, right? 2006 and 2014. So although the sales from individual complements were different, the total sales were approximately the same, which seems about right, right? So individual complements are different. Although the total sales was about the same, total sales from concert tickets was about the same. I'm not even do I need to look at? Let's quickly look at that. Concert tickets in 2006 and AAC digital in 2014. AAC digital in 2014. So that's, and concerts, yeah, well, that's not true. Although the total sales were greater, although the total sales from on, right, so it's all, these are all very complicated, B, C, and D, and they're definitely not correct because it's very clearly the total sales are equal, even though the sales from complements are not. Right. Okay, so let's grade this. We have to grade from 10 to 18. CCBDABD, CCBDABD, and DA. Okay, great. So we got all correct. Hope you found this exercise useful. If you did, please hit like and subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. I'll see you guys in another video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.